So imagine uh, a submarine the size of a 10-story building.
Right, just a massive structure.
Yeah, this massive biomechanical leviathan. And it's built to survive the absolute crushing darkness of the Mariana Trench.
Which means it is seamlessly holding back roughly, what, 14,500 pounds of pressure per square inch?
Exactly. Now, I want you to imagine that exact same sprawling submarine rocketing up from the depths, breaching the ocean surface, and just flying straight into the clouds.
And doing all that without instantly exploding into a fine mist.
Right. I mean, that is the fundamental engineering nightmare we are diving into today.
Yeah, it's a scenario that entirely shatters classical physics, honestly.
It really does.
Because, if you build a vessel designed to operate at a depth of 36,000 feet, you are building a pressurized environment that matches that depth.
Oh, right. You have to.
Exactly. So taking that immense internal pressure into a 1 bar surface atmosphere, that should be a catastrophic, mathematically guaranteed fatal error.
And if you've been following our recent deep dives into the year 3000 Human Alliance archival logs, we've touched on the sheer scale of the Abyssal invasion.
Yeah, the coastal processing pods, the overarching Pacific War, all of that.
All of that. But today, we are strictly setting aside those broad historical strokes. We have a highly specific, highly technical mission for this deep dive.
We really do.
We are cracking open Section ACAC of the HA logs, specifically gravitational gradient manipulation and pressure hull inertia.
It is quite the title.
Right. But basically, we are answering how these 100-foot abyssal bioships survive an environment that actively wants to tear them apart from the inside out.
Because that is the paradox of the abyssal technology. We look at their bioships and we see, biology and technology fused into a single whole.
Yeah, it looks organic.
It does. But to truly grasp the terror of what the Human Alliance faced, you have to understand the physical reality of 1,000 bar. That is the internal pressure telemetry they recorded inside these ships.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because 1,000 bar, or 14,500 psi, it sounds abstract until you put it next to human engineering.
Right. It's just a big number until you give it context.
Exactly. Like a standard car tire sits at about 35 CIs. A scuba tank is maybe 3,000 CIs.
Wow, yeah.
We are talking about 14,500 pounds of force pushing outward on every single square inch of this alien ship.
It's mind-boggling.
When human engineers built the Bath Escape Trieste to dive into the Mariana Trench back in the 20th century, they had to build a tiny, cramped sphere out of steel that was like 5 inches thick.
Just to keep the ocean from crushing the two guys inside.
Exactly.
And that was just to resist external pressure pushing in. The Trieste was practically a solid block of metal with a tiny hollow space in the middle.
Right.
The Abyssal Bioships are the exact inverse. They are massive, sprawling, hollowed-out cathedrals of biosilicon, and they are holding that equivalent trench pressure inside their cabins.
Right, which brings me to the biological equivalent. Because we've all seen pictures of the deep-sea blobfish.
Oh, yeah, the internet's favorite ugly fish.
Exactly. But when it's in its natural habitat at the bottom of the ocean, it actually looks like a completely normal, highly streamlined fish.
Yeah, because the immense weight of the water column is literally holding its gelatinous body together.
Right. But when fishing nets drag it up to the surface, the lack of external pressure causes all of its tissue to violently expand. It turns into a ruptured, sad-looking blob.
It's pretty grim, yeah.
It is. So applying that to a 100-foot alien ship, physics dictates that the second this thin biosilicon hull breaches the surface, the 14,500 psi of internal force should pop out like a soap bubble.
It absolutely should.
So why doesn't it?
Well, because the abyssals don't rely on brute force materials. A human engineer would look at that problem and say, okay, we need a titanium wall 10 feet thick.
Build a bigger wall.
Exactly. But a titanium wall that thick is far too heavy to maneuver, let alone fly. The abyssals realize that fighting physics with physical mass is, it's a losing battle.
So what do they do instead?
Instead, they use physics against itself. They rely on their foundational technology, which is quantum molecular silicon, or QMS.
Okay, yeah, I've seen this term all over the archives. But the logs jump straight from, manipulating atomic bonds to generating gravity.
Which is a pretty massive leap.
Right. It frankly reads like magic. How do you go from a biosilicon shell to localized space-time warping?
It basically comes down to density oscillation. So human technology relies on conductive paths and binary circuits, right?
Sure, yeah.
Well, abyssal QMS technology actually manipulates the atomic crystalline bonds of the silicon itself, and they do this at ambient temperatures.
Wait, ambient temperature?
Yeah, room temperature. By pushing electrical currents through this living biosilicon, their reactor cores can rapidly oscillate the density of the silicon matrix.
Oscillate the density. Wait, so you're saying they're vibrating the atomic structure so fast that it changes how mass interacts with space?
Exactly. They're creating artificial mass shadows.
Wow.
By rapidly shifting those crystalline bonds, they generate what the HA physicists designated as metric stress tensors.
Metric stress tensor. Okay, what does that actually mean in plain English?
It means they are essentially tricking the universe into thinking there is a hyperdense planetary mass sitting right next to the hull.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And this localized space-time warping creates a hydrostatic neutralization field.
So they aren't building a stronger wall at all.
No, not physically.
They are projecting an inward-directed artificial gravity field. Like they are literally pulling the hull inward to counteract the pressure pushing outward.
Yes. The QMS matrix embedded in the skin of the bioship projects this intense, perfectly calibrated gravitational pull toward the center of the craft.
That is insane.
What's fascinating here is they basically construct a virtual ocean out of gravity.
A virtual ocean.
Well,
that is just brilliant. The inward gravity simulates the exact weight of a 6,000-meter water column pushing against the outside of the ship.
exactly. And this field is entirely dynamic.
How so?
Well, as the bioship rises from the deep ocean toward the surface, the external water pressure naturally drops.
Right, because there's less water on top of it.
Exactly. So in response, the QMS field increases its artificial gravity to perfectly offset that drop. The result is what engineers call a net structural differential of 0.
Meaning the physical stress on the outer skin of the ship doesn't change, like, at all.
Not by a single fraction of a percent.
Yeah.
Mathematically, structurally, and functionally, the biosilicon hull does not know it is in the thin atmosphere of the surface.
Because the artificial gravity is squeezing it with the precise, identical force that the deep ocean would.
Yes, exactly.
They're literally wearing the deep ocean as armor.
It's incredible.
But, this brings up a massive leap in logic, because if you are a civilization that has figured out how to manipulate gravity just to hold your ship together,
You're going to use it for other things.
right, you aren't going to build traditional engines. You just use that exact same space-time manipulation to move the ship.
Which is exactly what we see in the archival telemetry. I mean, why deal with the friction and inefficiency of mechanical propulsion when you can simply bend space?
Here's where it gets really interesting. And honestly, this is where the physics get truly terrifying for the HA sonar operators tracking these things.
Oh, definitely.
Because the logs show these 100-foot bioships traveling at Mach 3 underwater.
Yeah.
Let that sink in for you listening. Mach 3 through a medium that is nearly 1,000 times denser than air.
It shouldn't be possible.
It shouldn't.
Yeah.
But here's what I really cannot accept at face value. The sonar tracks show these massive ships making instantaneous 90-degree turns while moving at Mach 3.
Yeah, that's where people usually get tripped up.
Well, yeah, because physics is physics. You can't just rotate a gravitational frame and ignore inertia.
Right.
Like, if I hit the brakes in my car, my coffee spills. If human fighter pilots pull 9 Gs, they pass out. A 90-degree turn at Mach 3 would generate thousands of Gs. So how are they stopping the internal atmosphere and, like, the alien pilot itself from slamming into the front wall and turning into soup?
It is a completely fair challenge.
Yeah.
Because it assumes the bioship is moving through space the way a human craft does, by pushing against the environment with a thruster.
Right. Action and reaction.
Exactly. But the abyssals use gravitational gradient manipulation. They do not push. They fall.
Wait, they fall.
They fall. They create a severe gravitational sink directly in front of the ship, and they subtly expand space directly behind it.
Oh.
So they exist in a perpetual state of controlled freefall. If they want to shoot into the stratosphere, they simply shift the bottom of their localized gravity well to the sky.
Okay, but that still doesn't solve the inertia problem for the pilot inside.
Why not?
Because if you change the direction of that fall by 90 degrees in a split second, the biological entity inside still has forward momentum.
Well, this is where we have to look at how the QMS field interacts with matter, which is really the secret to their absolute inertial dampening.
Okay, I'm listening.
To understand it, Picture a snow globe.
A snow globe. Got it.
If you are standing in a room and you drop a snow globe, it accelerates toward the floor. But inside the glass sphere, the water, the plastic figurines, the artificial snow, they're all falling at the exact same rate.
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Right. Relative to each other, they aren't moving at all. To a tiny observer inside the snow globe, the snow appears to float perfectly still, even though the entire system is hurtling downward.
So the gravity field isn't just pulling the hull.
No.
It's pulling the entire internal contents simultaneously.
Exactly. The gravitational field generated by the QMS acts uniformly on every single atomic particle inside the localized frame.
Everything inside the bubble.
Everything. It acts on the hull, the liquid atmosphere inside the pressurized cabin, the biosynthetic nervous systems wiring the ship, and the soft tissue of the alien pilot. The floor is literally pulling on the pilot's blood, bones, and the air in their lungs at the exact same rate as it pulls the ship itself.
So they are trapped in a falling elevator, but they have complete control over which direction the elevator falls.
Precisely. Because the entire localized gravitational frame rotates with the ship, there is absolute zero relative acceleration between the pilot and the hull.
Meaning, if I am the alien pilot and my bioship pulls a 90-degree snap turn at Mach 3, I don't feel a thing.
Not a single thing.
My coffee doesn't spill. I am sitting perfectly stationary while the universe seemingly pivots wildly around me.
You would experience absolute zero G-force. And honestly, this is why the Human Alliance's early submarine tactics were utterly useless.
Oh, I can imagine.
Right, because a human torpedo relies on predictive hydrodynamics.
Right.
You fire where the target is going to be based on their turning radius and momentum.
But they don't have a turning radius.
Exactly. You cannot outmaneuver a vessel that fundamentally does not obey classical inertia. They aren't turning through fluid, they are rotating the geometry of space around them.
I really want you, the listener, to put yourself in the shoes of an HA submarine crew for a moment. You are sitting in the dark, watching a sonar screen, and you are tracking an enemy that ignores the basic laws of motion.
It's terrifying.
Truly, they are holding back crushing deep ocean pressure with a virtual gravity well and using that exact same well to perform impossible maneuvers. It sounds like an invincible godship.
It really does.
So what does this all mean? How on earth did humanity's HA Navy figure out a way to fight something that advanced?
By analyzing the physics and realizing that the Abyssal's greatest strength was also their single catastrophic vulnerability.
The pressure.
Yes.
Because if their entire existence on the surface relies on an active, power-hungry gravitational field holding that 1,000-bar pressure inside, they're constantly one glitch away from a disaster.
Exactly. The HA Navy realized you do not need a weapon powerful enough to incinerate a heavily armored, 100-foot biomechanical beast.
Right. You don't need a nuclear warhead to vaporize it.
No, you just need to break the structural geometry that is holding the pressure together.
It's like throwing a stone at a massive, intricate glass archway.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
The stone doesn't need to be big enough to crush the archway. It just needs to chip the keystone, and the entire structure's own weight tears it apart.
That is the perfect analogy. And that realization birthed the HA's tactical exploit, which was supercavitating kinetic torpedoes.
Wait, let's look at the mechanics of that. Because water is incredibly dense.
Extremely.
How does a human torpedo travel fast enough to intercept a ship doing Mach 3, let alone strike it hard enough to break a space-time coil, without the water friction just shattering the torpedo first?
Through supercavitation.
Okay, how does that work?
So the torpedo is designed with a specialized flat nose cone. And this cone deflects water outward so fast that the pressure actually drops below the vapor point of water.
Wait, so it boils it?
Yes. It essentially boils the water instantly, creating a bubble of gas that envelops the entire torpedo.
So the torpedo isn't swimming through water anymore. It's flying through a pocket of gas that it generates itself.
Correct. It completely eliminates the drag of the liquid ocean, allowing the projectile to reach speeds well over 250 miles per hour underwater.
That is wild.
And at the tip of these supercavitating torpedoes, the HA mounted solid tungsten carbide penetrators.
Yeah, I noticed that in the logistics logs. They specifically had to pivot to tungsten carbide. Why not use depleted uranium, which was, standard for armor-piercing human munitions?
Well, depleted uranium is incredibly dense, but it is highly susceptible to rapid corrosion in high salinity seawater.
Oh, right. the ocean.
Yeah, especially when it's subjected to the extreme thermal stresses of supercavitation. The tungsten carbide was chemically stable enough to survive the transit and hard enough to do exactly one job:
Which was
dent the biosilicon armor.
just dent it, not even pierce the hole fully.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, they didn't need to blow a hole in the ship. They just needed to break the continuity of the quantum molecular silicon field coils embedded in the outer skin.
Ah, I see.
The moment that supercavitating kinetic penetrator smashes into the hull, it fractures the crystalline matrix.
Circuit breaks.
The circuit breaks, and the localized gravitronic collapse is instantaneous.
The virtual ocean just turns off.
It flickers. It doesn't even need to fail completely. A single millisecond of interruption in that hydrostatic neutralization field is all it takes.
And we established the internal pressure is 1,000 bar. So 14,500 of outward force is suddenly violently unchecked.
Unchecked and completely exposed.
What happens in that millisecond? Because a normal human submarine, if the hull breaches at the bottom of the ocean, it implodes inward, right?
Right, it gets crushed. But near the surface or in the atmosphere, the pressure differential is entirely reversed.
Because there's no water pushing back.
Exactly. The 1,000-bar internal pressure instantly realizes the external ocean of gravity is gone, and the biosilicon skin cannot physically contain that force.
Oh, wow.
The structural integrity shreds in microseconds.
So it is an inside-out explosion.
It is explosive decompression on a scale we rarely see outside of deep space catastrophes, but magnified exponentially because of the sheer density of the internal fluids.
Because it's all liquid inside.
Yeah. The pressurized atmosphere and liquid inside the cabin violently equalize outward, expanding at supersonic speeds.
That's terrifying.
The alien pilot inside isn't just killed, it is completely pulverized in a fraction of a second. The hull shatters into microscopic shrapnel.
The Human Alliance figured out how to turn the aliens' own highly advanced life support system into a fatal containment bomb.
They really did.
It is a stunning, terrifying reversal. I mean, you look at the abyssal engineering, and it is a marvel. A civilization that wears the deep ocean as armor, that uses room temperature gravity manipulation to turn our surface world into their playground.
It really highlights a vital truth about warfare and technology. You know, the Abyssals were operating on a plane of physics that humanity barely understood conceptually, let alone practically.
Right.
But a vulnerability is a vulnerability.
And that is such a critical takeaway for you listening to this. It reminds you of the sheer, desperate ingenuity required to survive a conflict where you are outmatched technologically, numerically, and physically.
Yeah, the HA had their backs against the wall.
They did. The HA didn't win engagements like the Battle of the Emperor Seamounts by outbuilding the Abyssals, and they didn't win by outcomputing them.
No.
They won by observing the physics of their enemy, stripping away the awe and turning the atmospheric pressure of Earth into a weapon. They basically weaponized the very environment the aliens were trying to conquer.
But understanding that technology to break it is really only the first step. And this leads us to the most dangerous frontier in the HA archives.
Right, the later years.
Yeah, because as the timeline progresses toward the year 3000, humanity is no longer satisfied with just shattering these QMS coils. Through the Xenotechnological Integration Program, or XTI, they are actively reverse engineering the biosilicon.
Right, they're starting to graft this space-time manipulation onto human ships. They want the inertial dampening for human pilots.
Which raises an incredibly profound and lingering question. One that the HA Directorate themselves seem to be terrified of in the later logs.
What's that?
If manipulating gravity is what allowed the Abyssals to survive on the surface, what happens when human engineers, driven by desperation and war, fully unleash this technology on a planetary scale?
That is a deeply unsettling thought. Because if a single bioship can create a virtual ocean of gravity, what happens when humanity scales that up to an entire naval fleet?
Exactly. If human dreadnoughts can generate massive, localized gravitational sinks, could they eventually use gravitronics to literally pull the oceans back?
Wow.
Could they strategically drain the Mariana Trench just to expose the abyssal staging grounds?
I mean, logically, yes.
And more importantly, if you start applying massive artificial metric stress tensors to the Earth's crust, are we playing with a spatial power that might ultimately fracture Earth's tectonic plates entirely?
Oh, man.
In our desperate attempt to take back the planet, we might accidentally shatter it.
Weaponizing the fabric of gravity itself. It solves the immediate problem, but it might be the last problem we ever solve. Something for you to ponder until our next deep dive into the archives.